The New York and Levain style giant cookies have really been making the rounds on Instagram lately. And since I can't really get them here in London, I thought I'll bake my own. These are absolutely massive and delicious. The best thing about this recipe is that the cookie dough can be frozen and baked as and when you need them. This is perfect since many of us are in lockdown right now. I hope you enjoy this one. Let's get to it. Right, let's get started with mixing our dry ingredients together. In the mixing bowl, mix together some plain flour, cornstarch, baking soda, baking powder and a pinch of salt. Cornstarch doesn't really have any gluten like flour, so it will just help create a softer texture and stop the cookie from being too tough. Set this aside for now and whisk together 2 eggs. No need to beat this too much, just enough for the egg whites and egg yolk to come together. Again, the reason we're mixing this now is so that we don't have to do it later and risk over mixing. Next, in a large mixing bowl, whip up some cold butter for about a minute or so. Add in the white and soft brown sugar and cream together for another 2 minutes or until it has a nice even consistency. The molasses in the brown sugar will help with the nice dense chewy texture that we all love in our cookies. Once you're happy with the consistency, whip in the eggs as well. Do this in 2 separate intervals to make sure we have a nice even batter. If you want, you can also add in a dash of vanilla extracts to give it that extra oomph like I did here. And if you are lazy like me and using an electric mixer, remove the bowl and do everything by hand from this point onwards. I can't stress this enough not to overdevelop the gluten by over mixing, because you don't want a tough cookie, especially when it's this big, so this is super important. Okay, sieve in the dry ingredients that we mixed together at the start. Do this in 2 batches again so the mix is nice and even. Very gently fold in the flour into the batter and stop when it just comes together. And of course we can't forget the topping. Now the traditional Levain cookie uses chocolate chips and walnuts, and I've got to be honest, it was a little bit difficult to get hold of any walnuts, or actually any groceries in the UK right now, so I went for pecans, or pecans depending on where you're from, instead. It actually worked out really well because pecans has a really nice distinct flavour. Along with the dark chocolate chips, mix them into the dough. You can see I've crushed the pecans a little bit as well as I sprinkled them to make sure the pieces weren't too big. It's time to portion them out. I make them so they're about 100 grams each. I have seen recipes that goes as far as 150 grams, but I just found that a little bit too much. Use a scale for this to measure each one, and once you're happy with the weight, gently shape them into a ball just like this. Don't push or pack it in too much, otherwise the cookie will be too hard. Unfortunately, we do have to put these in the freezer for at least 2 hours before baking. This helps develop flavour, but more importantly, it will make sure it doesn't spread out too much when we bake them in the oven later. So, after waiting patiently for 2 hours, you can finally bake them. Make sure you use another tray that isn't from the freezer, because you don't want the oven temperature dropping too much when the cookies go in. As I said before, the cookie dough keeps in the freezer for up to a month in an airtight container, so bake as many as you need. In my case, I'm only doing 3. The rest I'll save for later. Throw these in the oven at 175 degrees Celsius or 345 Fahrenheit for 16 minutes. They should flatten out a little and turn golden brown just like this. Beautiful, isn't it? Give them some time to cool and they are ready to eat. And like most cookie, I found them the best when they're still slightly warm and gooey inside. I mean, just look at this. Alright, I hope these cookies will bring a smile to you and whoever you're baking them for, especially with all that's going on right now. That's it for today, thank you for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one.